Okay, I'm going to have to explain why I'm doing this. Hello there, this is going to be a bit of a different video. I realise I say that about most of my Shed Science videos by now. But whatevs. Recently I challenged some of my students in my school to have a go at researching different building techniques. I was asking them to look at different building techniques which are revolutionary and innovative and new and possibly with an ecological benefit. As part of that activity I challenged them to also, if they could, build something out of biscuits. And as part of the instructions which I gave them, there was an optional step 4, which was for them to pretend to be a giant. And I thought, well, it's not really fair for them to have all the fun. So I bought some biscuits. And I bought more biscuits. And then I bought some more biscuits. And I thought that first of all I would conduct an experiment to find out which kind of mortar would be best. I had 3 possible candidates for sticking biscuits together. They were milk chocolate, white chocolate and marshmallows. My thinking behind this was that I could just use normal chocolate. I then thought white chocolate might be different because maybe the sugar content is different, that might make it more sticky. And then I figured that marshmallows are particularly sticky, and if you heat marshmallows up they go all gooey and soft, and if you could heat up and melt down some marshmallows, that maybe, just maybe, it might end up being even stronger as a sticky material than melted chocolate. Well, I should say melted chocolate that is then re-unmelted. Re-unmelted? What's the word? Solidified. And then after I had built my biscuit building, I figured I would show you 3 different building techniques which have been used down the ages, because I figured that even with some biscuits, you could demonstrate some engineering properties. And finally, after all of that, I decided to be a giant and trash my biscuit buildings. Step 1 was to find which material would be best at sticking my biscuits together. I used a range of biscuits here. I used nice biscuits, however you pronounce it, and I used malted milks. Mostly then because if there was any sort of confusion over which material was the best as the mortar, I could eliminate the biscuit being the thing that didn't stick them together or what have you. So I melted down some white chocolate and I stuck a few of the biscuits together in a variety of different ways for a variety of different tests. I did the same thing with milk chocolate, and then I had a go with marshmallows. So the first thing I realised while trying to melt a marshmallow with a lighter in this way was that it's very easy to accidentally burn yourself. The second thing I realised was that while you are melting down the marshmallow, you've got a very, very small window to stick anything together. And I discovered that the marshmallow was extremely sticky even before it was melted. The problem with the marshmallow is that while it is very sticky, it's also incredibly malleable. So while it does stick 2 biscuits together very, very well, those biscuits are kind of flexible, and that flexibility is not something that I wanted. I performed what I called the wiggle test. I also just banged the glued together bits against each other, and I found that consistently the milk chocolate stayed together while the white chocolate biscuits broke. I also performed what I'm calling biscuit jousting, where biscuit horses would run at each other and just smash into each other until one of them broke, and it was always the white chocolate one. After discovering that my malted milks were almost all broken in half in some way, I found out that milk chocolate was the best building material for me. And so began one of my most ambitious projects, making Biscuit City. Biscuity. Let me walk you through Biscuity. We have a bog standard house, slanted roof, nothing fancy. We have a slightly different apartment block with a balcony, and the pièce de resistance is Biscuity Cathedral. So I figured, what am I doing with my life? So I figured that each of these biscuit buildings demonstrates one kind of building techniques still in use today. Let's begin with the house. So I used pink wafers for the house, and what's quite nice about pink wafers is they're incredibly light. Any kind of wafer has a very low density. The reason for this is because most of a pink wafer is air, and the benefit of this is it's actually very similar to a building material called insulation. For most buildings, when you make the walls, you don't actually just have one layer of bricks or what have you, you have more than one layer. And in between those layers, you want to trap heat, because you don't want heat to leave your house. And it turns out that one of the best insulators is air. So in the middle of each wall, there is at least one layer of insulation, and it might be a foam, or it might be like a spongy material. But whatever the insulation material is, it has lots of air pockets within it. That air heats up and it retains heat inside the building. And you can see from my pink wafers that I've actually got several layers here, like a real wall. It's insulating, and that makes this a very warm biscuity house. The other building technique I want to show you is with my balcony here. So the problem with a balcony is that it sticks out from a building. And generally if something is sticking out from a building, there's nothing underneath it to stop that part of the building collapsing. So if you've got any structure that you sort of put onto the side of a building or that comes out of the side of the building, there's a chance that it will just break off. I have done something which architects and engineers and builders use to make sure that anything that sticks out from a building doesn't fall off. And it's called cantilevering. So if this balcony was separate from the rest of the biscuit building and I had just glued it on with some melted chocolate, it would probably very easily fall off. So what I've done instead is I'm resting the balcony on some rich tea fingers which run the entire length of the building. Therefore any weight on the balcony here exerts a force that would make those rich tea fingers do this. But they aren't going to flip forward because I have the weight of the rest of the building on this. Essentially I've made a seesaw. And for the pièce de résistance, and the pièce de résistance, obviously, is Biscuity Cathedral. So if you look at some older and bigger buildings, particularly churches and cathedrals, you see sticky out bits. Along the wall, they have lots of things sticking out. And these are called buttresses. Buttresses, of course, is a funny word because it contains the word but. In actual fact, a buttress is a... I can't say it without laughing now. In actual fact, a buttress sticks out from a building to stop a wall from collapsing sideways. If you have a freestanding wall, any force exerted on the side of it, like for example from the wind, is obviously going to topple it over. However, if you build a buttress on one side of the wall, it prevents that wall from falling over sideways. And you still see these on buildings today. It's a fairly old technique, but a pretty good one at making sure the wall is just a little bit more stable. Although you normally see buttresses on the outside of buildings, I put mine on the inside of Biscuity Cathedral so as not to ruin the very nice facade. It's a joke because they're nice biscuits. So there you have it, cantilevering, buttresses and insulation. 3 different building techniques for different purposes that are used for actual buildings from an engineering point of view today. I'm hoping that's been useful for you to see. If you stick around, I'm going to act like a giant and tear this city apart. So stay safe, be awesome, and thank you very much for watching. Let's get on to the one.